Welcome to Hey Joe, what you know? We've got Frankie Maguire this week with me from All Villa No Filler podcast. Frankie, welcome. How are you doing, mate?
Not bad at all, thank you. All Villa, no filler. That's who we are. But it's great to see you again, Joe. I know you well from our broadcast background, so it's nice to catch up with you and see this channel grow. And basically, I love just chatting football with you. Really.
Absolutely, yeah. Frankie and I used to work at Reuters a few years ago now on sports shows and
Mhm.
daily and weekly sports shows. And we had some decent guests on, didn't we? We used to have Mark Bright,
Yeah.
Pat Nevin, Perry
Nigel
Groves,
Winterburn.
Nigel Winterburn, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone Villa related? Don't think we did we?
No, no, I don't think we did actually. No, it was quite London centric, wasn't it? It was basically if you're in London, they grab you off that. But I can't think of any Villa people on it. No, it was always something I wanted to talk about, but Villa were absolutely useless at the time. So 2015, 16, 17. So yeah, I don't think there was much interest in Villa at that point.
No, maybe not. I think Tony Cottee was the other guy, and then we used to have some decent football journos on there as well, churning out the
Yeah.
latest lines for us. But
Yeah.
yeah, the main reason I've got you here is to talk about your podcast, Frankie. How long has it been going now for? Not too long, but you've already been up for an award, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, got nominated for the Football Content Awards for Best Podcast, which was amazing. It's literally 4 years this month since we started it. Me and two people from the BBC, Roisin and George Zielinski. We co-founded it during COVID. We were really, really bored, didn't know what to do, so we just thought, well, let's just talk about Villa, because the games were still going, weren't they? And then our very first game that we were going to cover was a game where every single Villa player got COVID. It was against Liverpool. And so Aston Villa literally sent out their youth team to play against Jurgen Klopp's mighty Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp showed no mercy. He had Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Virgil van Dijk, all these players. And then by some incredible miracle, Aston Villa took the lead in that game through Louis Barry, who's been absolutely shining in League One this season. We've just recalled him, and he's going on loan to Hull as of today. So yeah, that was the first game I did. It was a funny experience, and yeah, I mean, as I say, like I always had like kind of a broadcast background, but obviously in broadcasting you have to be very balanced and you have to be very, you can't be opinionated on things. And I think on our show we do actually try to be pretty balanced and pretty fair minded on everything. Like we're not antagonistic to other fan bases. We don't, try and court controversy or scream down cameras like a lot of very popular, but morally dubious podcasts do. Fair enough, it's what they do. But yeah, we I've been doing that for a while, and it's just grown and grown and grown from there, really. And I didn't anticipate the number of people who do watch and listen to it to do so. There's loads of Villa podcasts, so obviously it's quite a crowded market we were going into. But yeah, it's sort of found its place, I guess, and made loads and loads of great friends from it, and just built, working in broadcasting, we built a lot of contacts as well. So I'd strongly recommend, if anybody, you know, is thinking about it, is on the fence about it, do, research it and figure out ways to make it entertaining and to listen to. Because, yeah, I've really enjoyed doing it. I think it's one of the best decisions I've made, really.
And how did you get on at the Football Content Awards when you went there a few months ago?
Yeah, it was great. Amazing, really. Really sort of hammered home how, how far we've come, I guess, just from being on WhatsApp and being like, should we just start a podcast about Villa? Just going to be a good group of mates talking about Villa to 4 years later at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at a black tie event. And, seeing lots of, top podcasts, well-known podcasts, and seeing Manchester City's like main broadcast team there.
Mm.
Various football clubs were there. And sort of realizing some of them, like people who used to work at places like, top media companies like Reach Media, and they've gone on and, left that to build their own
Mm.
podcast unit about, so like Nottingham Forest FC and things like that, and sort of find that they can build careers out of it. So yeah, it was an amazing event. Incredible to be nominated. I think they said something like 30,000 applicants went
Wow.
for it, for different categories. So there were lots of different categories. We didn't win, but I think those that did win, I think it was like Arsenal Vision or something. These a lot of them are much more. They're bigger teams than what we
Mm.
have. Some of them are more funded. Some of them have media backing and all that. But I wouldn't say that's what they had. I don't know if they did, to be honest. But some of them. There's other podcasts that just have a lot of bigger teams essentially,
Yeah.
which is so for us as a very small team, it's kind of me doing everything really, and then me and George do all the show, or a lot of the shows together. Yeah, it was really cool to be nominated and get some recognition. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And obviously you do you do bits from the games when you're there as well. Saw you at Arsenal last week
Yeah.
from inside the Emirates after the 2-2 draw, giving that sort of live reaction as well. So it's a great mix. And how many Villa matches? I know you work and stuff, but how many Villa matches do you try and catch?
As in, do I get to in
Mm.
person? Yeah, so last season there were far more I was going to, because I live in London. It's sort of difficult. I have to sort of pick and choose a little bit, because A, I live in London, and B, ticket prices this season at Villa have got far more expensive. That's obviously been a big bugbear for Villa fans. It's been a topic of conversation within the media itself. It's Guardian have written about it. They've talked about it on different wider podcasts. Um, yeah, it's so I think this season I've been to in the Premier League. I've been to three away games. I think West Ham, Chelsea, Arsenal, and then I went to Villa. I've been to a few home games, not as many as I usually would go to,
Mm.
but I did. I'm sort of picking and choosing a little bit. So I didn't go to West Ham this weekend because I'm going to Celtic in the Champions League on Wednesday. Champions League ticket prices are really high,
Yeah.
£94, but
Wow.
it's
Gosh.
absolutely just wild. I mean, look, I mean, PSR is a root cause of a lot of this. That's a wider discussion, I think. But yeah, so I'm not spending money on tickets that I normally would have gone to,
Yeah.
instead saving to go to Celtic, and then I went to Bayern Munich as well. And Bayern Munich, to be honest, I think it's the best game I've ever been to as a Villa fan live. It was just absolutely unbelievable. What an experience.
Yeah, so that was match day two of the Champions League. And obviously, you're a point outside of the automatic top eight going into the final round of matches tomorrow. A win and other results go your way, and you're in the top eight. I mean, it's tangible. It's there, isn't it?
It is. Just don't know what to expect from Villa at the moment. Brilliant win at Everton. Defied the new manager bounce of David Moyes.
Mm.
Fantastic fight back against Arsenal to 2-2, to then an underwhelming loss at Monaco, to a very underwhelming draw against West Ham. A game in which we were excellent for 15 minutes and then just fell off the pace. And it just
Mm.
seems to be a persistent issue with Villa this season, where I think last season it was a little bit clearer. I think you knew what you were going to get in games. This year, you know what you're going to get, but it's always the same frustrating thing where we look fantastic in about 20-minute spells, and then we look just like we cannot contain a game. We
Yeah.
invite pressure. We can see goals all the time. So hence why so many of our games at home have been 2-2 with Brighton, 1-1 with West Ham, 2-2 with Crystal Palace, 1-1 with Bournemouth. We find a lead in these games and then lose these
Mm.
leads. It's just we're just really struggling to control games, and I think it's partly it feels like it's just a game volume issue. I think you're a Liverpool supporter, so you all know what the experience of the Champions League in Europe is like far more than what Aston Villa do.
Mm.
I think as a squad, as a club, and as a fans and as players, all of us are having to adapt to playing games all the time. Obviously, there's more games in the Champions League this season, but since the late October, we have played on average every 3 games in 3 days. It's or roughly that. It's been absolutely wild. And obviously with PSR, Villa do not have the financial firepower to go and buy the players that we kind of need to buy
Mm.
to ensure that we can stay competitive in the league and the Champions League. It's a similar experience to Newcastle last season. That therefore leads to questions of PSR, I guess, but also like it's just really hard. We've had to sell Diaby and Douglas Luiz, two of our best players,
Mm.
just to stay within UEFA's squad cost ratio, to stay within PSR in the Premier League, which is criticism of what Villa spent a few years ago. But at the same time, it is pretty galling. And so yeah, it it's difficult to predict how Villa are going to play against Celtic. I sort of feel in my head we're going to start really fast. I think we'll put Celtic under loads of pressure, but I think Celtic they showed what they can do at Atalanta when they drew 0-0 earlier this season. They have Champions League experience.
Mm.
They didn't play it this weekend, so they'll have extra energy levels that we don't have. They're going to be missing a couple of key players. One of they've just sold amazingly to Rennes. But I can see it being a situation in which Villa, we press hard, but they sit back. Then they try and hit us on the break, and I don't trust Villa not to concede. So I can see this being a really tight and difficult game on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one thing is that Celtic have already sort of they're through, aren't they, to the next phase, knockout 16 anyway. That'll take the edge off them, and hopefully that'll play into your hands, get the crowd behind your side, and then go for it.
Mm.
There's a couple of teams ahead of you with you're virtually there, aren't you? It's just doing the job now, essentially. I know you've been frustrated at times with the performances, but who's been the sort of standout players? Duran's had all the headlines, but who's been your sort of main man for Villa this season?
I think if I was to say player of the season so far, it probably has to be Yuri Tielemans. Uh, I think without him, I'm not sure where Villa really are this season. He just seems to be the player who, when we're under pressure from deep, he can find a pass through the lines that then leads to Villa to break. And the amount of times we've scored from that this season, he just has he's just somebody. He's like a fulcrum for us
Mm.
essentially. He can play as the second striker role as well, so he can play in a more advanced role, and he did really well against Arsenal in that sort of functioning that role, but also
Yeah,
as a deep line midfielder alongside Onana or alongside Boubacar Kamara. I think, in all honesty, our best player. I think if Kamara had been fit all season, he only came back in about November. If he'd been fit all season, I'd say he was our player of the season because since he's been fit, he's just absolutely world class.
yeah,
I'm currently waiting to see all the links of Liverpool, Manchester City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, whoever it is, because he's that level. He's just a fantastic player. And, against West Ham yesterday, we were a bit all over the place, but he was the one player who all game long, him and Tielemans, they were the two players all game long who
mm,
you thought they get the ball, they'll do the right thing with it. So I'd say Kamara's our best player, but I think on the whole over the season, it probably has to be Tielemans.
mm. I mean, you were raving about Kamara last weekend against Arsenal, weren't you, in the
Yeah,
stands,
yeah,
and saw some of the highlights. Yeah, he is really good.
he is.
Morgan Rogers, though, how highly do you rate him?
Yeah, he's another one who's. I mean, since he signed him a year ago, there was I think it was second tier podcast, maybe a championship podcast. Who, look, they it's a great podcast, but they had a real mistake when they said that Hull had Aston Villa, or no, sorry, Middlesbrough had Aston Villa's pants down when Villa signed him for 8 million quid, and pretty much since the moment we signed him, he's looked absolutely at
Yeah,
this level, at Premier League level, and the more I've watched him, he slightly reminds me of Dele Alli at his zenith. Really physical, quite nasty, incredible ability to just get away from players in
mm,
tight spaces and make creative passes that a lot of players don't make. I think his level, what is he, 22, 23? I think his mountain, the summit could be top level
mm,
England regular. I think there's a couple of flaws in his game at the moment. He sometimes doesn't release the ball at the right moment. He looks a bit knackered. I think we play him all the time, and he just looks like a player who maybe needs a little bit more time, on the bench, and needs a little bit more competition, maybe because there are times that he looks a little bit like he's being a bit indulgent. I think
yeah,
if I said that, I think he'd probably go mad about that, and a lot of fans wouldn't agree with it. But there are moments where I think he looks a bit like I think you've crossed the border from being fantastic to a little bit showy off
yeah.
here and making the wrong decision. So if you can just fix the odd rash or poor decision he makes, then he's going to the very, very top
Mm.
because he's a brilliant player. And as I say, I think again without him this season, I'm not sure where we'd be, to be honest. Again, really, really important player.
But one man who obviously went off at the weekend, Tyrone Mings. What's the latest with him, and what's it looking like with this potential injury now he's got? Obviously, he's been out for a long time as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we all absolutely love Tyrone Mings at Aston Villa. He's one of my all-time favorite players. I think I just love the man on and off the pitch, everything he does. But yeah, obviously, he had a terrible knee injury a few years ago, and then he had that terrible knee injury now for us recently last season. So he missed all of last year. Only came back in October, and then Pau Torres did his metatarsal in January, so he's out for 2 to 3 months. So we were always asking a lot of Tyrone Mings to come in and play 2 months straight, the game volume we have without something happening. It looked bad yesterday, but fortunately, he's put out a message on Instagram saying that it's not as serious as he said basically that he's had a serious injury. This isn't that. So hopefully, it's only a short-term thing. That being said, Villa absolutely need to sign a defender because we've just sold Diego Carlos as well. That was largely PSR reasons, I think. But we've been linked with Axel Disasi today at Chelsea. We've been linked with Juan Foyth at Villarreal. I think, there's only a couple of days left of this transfer window. I
Mm.
think Villa are going to be pretty rapid movers and we're going to have to get something in because we just can't go through the next 2 months with the games we've got, with the ambitions we have,
Mm.
having to play Luca Dean at centre back. I mean, that is not happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the one, is it? I
No.
just saw something on Twitter as well, actually, before we came on. Fabrizio Romano linking João Felix with you as well.
I really, I can't, I have not seen that. That
I
is
don't
the
know if
one
he'd
that,
do a job at the back, to be fair.
yeah, yeah. Knowing our injury, look, he'll be playing in goal for us soon enough. Yeah, he's yeah. I mean, look, Villa's injury crisis for last year and a half is, I think it's similar to what Newcastle had last year. We've been absolutely terrible injuries for Villa in the last year and a half. It's a miracle we've done what we've done, I think, in a way. But yeah, Joao Felix, God, I mean, that is the link that will not die. We've been linked with him now for 2 to 3 years. He made an absolutely massive error going to Chelsea. That never, ever looked like working. I simply didn't get it. And as soon as it happened, I thought, I know how this is going to go. You're not going to get the game time you need. And you're therefore going to be frustrated in the same way were at Atletico. And within a year and a half, 2 years maximum, you will be off to Saudi Arabia for massive money, and that'll be that. A wasted talent. That'll be it. And now he's linked to Aston Villa. I mean, look, if he comes into Villa, I think that was the right move for him. I think in October or sorry in August, because he would have started at Villa all the time. He would have been, Emery would have been the type of coach to try and get the best out of him. He would have he just had the opportunities to play week in, week out, be the main man that he's not going to get at Chelsea, that he wasn't able to get at Atletico. It would have been the perfect move for him. And it was a disastrous decision to go to Chelsea. And it's proven so.
Yeah.
And if he
Once,
comes
but
to Villa
twice.
now, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Just a career of poor decisions. And I mean, look, I'm not going to hold my breath that he's going to come to Villa now, but if he does, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'd be confident that he'd have some really good games for us, and that Unai Emery would get a real peak out of him that maybe he's not going to get at Chelsea.
Mm.
But I think that would be one where I'd just sit there and go, wait and see. If he joined Villa, be like, well, let's see what you got.
Yeah. Yeah. He might be more of a moments man than a consistency man.
Yeah.
Um, Unai, is he the best one you've ever had manager wise? You've had some good ones, especially when you were growing up.
Yeah, I think there's a reason to call him Professor Unai. I even it's so like ridiculous now that like I'm sitting there and I'll be in a pub talking with Villa fans and I'll just call him Professor Unai without even thinking about it. And so when people haven't heard me do that, they look at me like, "You what?" And I get that a lot. People look at me like, "You what?" You've done that plenty of times, Jay, when
Oh
we
yeah.
were drinking in different bars and all that, and you were like, "What is this guy on about?" But yeah, I think Unai. I mean, look, in my lifetime, I've supported Villa since 1992. So I was, my first ever season supporting Villa was the first season of the Premier League, and Villa came second.
Mm.
So I
The
just
bar
thought, well,
was
this
set
is
pretty
easy.
high then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought, well, this is easy. I was the one year you could accuse anyone of being a glory supporter for Aston Villa. And then we won the Coca-Cola Cup 2 years later, and that was all under Ron Atkinson.
Yeah.
So for me, obviously, Ron Atkinson probably has to be the number one just because of what he did when he was there, really. And but I think, within my lifetime, we've had some decent managers, Martin O'Neill, John Gregory, they had some good moments,
Yeah.
but we've had some absolute clown shows as well. And I think, I look at Aston Villa in our history and I compare us to, let's say Liverpool and Manchester United, right? There's no reason, say, from the 1960s onwards, that Aston Villa could not have done what Liverpool and Manchester United did. You consider the size of the city, the fan bases, and the history. I mean, at that point, Villa's history was actually stronger than pretty much anybody else's. But what happened was that Liverpool and Manchester United managed to find those talismanic, transcendent, cultural managers who just changed the shape of the club and, in a way, impacted the entire identity of the city.
Mm.
So Liverpool have the legacy of Shankly, of Paisley, Kenny Dalglish, and then there was Houllier had a great time there, but you'd say Jurgen Klopp and now Arne Slot's done a fantastic job. They've had these fantastic managers who changed the culture of these teams to winning mentalities. And Manchester United had the same thing with Matt Busby and Alex Ferguson. Now, Aston Villa had that in Ron Saunders from 1975 to 1982. We won the European Cup, obviously, and we won the league under him. We won the League Cup as well a couple of times. So he was, and we were competing at the top of the league. So he was that manager for us, but we've not had that since. And Unai Emery is as close to that as I can think. I've not seen the Villa fan base so bought in and invested to a manager ever. And as soon as he joined us after the debacle of Steven Gerrard, I couldn't believe he joined us just because I thought that is a man who's won things.
Mm.
We have not had a manager who's won 4 Europa Leagues, a manager who's just been to a Champions League semi-final with Villarreal, a manager who has won various league titles, various trophies at like PSG and Valencia and Sevilla and all these clubs. So it was mind blowing. And he's come in and done exactly what you would have hoped he's done. And the fact he managed to get his Champions League within a year and a half of joining us, the fact he even got us into the Conference League in his first 6 months there, extraordinary. He's an amazing. It's been amazing to watch, and I feel like just watching his football. I feel like I've learned about football watching him. I like to think I watch a lot of football. I watch Pep Guardiola's Barcelona week in, week out. But watching Unai Emery's Aston Villa has been to see my own club playing in a style that's like reminiscent of a great, say, La Liga side has been absolutely amazing. It really has. And long may it continue.
Absolutely, mate. Well, hopefully exciting times ahead, Frankie. Apart from when you play Liverpool, of course.
Yeah.
But a couple more questions, if I may. Just
Yeah.
ask everyone this: your favourite ever PL striker and why?
Non-Villa, Villa.
It could be Villa, could be. Let's do
I
both.
think if you were to go Aston Villa, my first true love was Dwight York, and then when he moved to Manchester United, I was so devastated. My mom had to take me for a McDonald's Happy Meal. I was 20 years old at the time. No, I was 12 years old at the time, and it was only years later, obviously, when you experience going out with people in relationships, that I realized that was my first experience of heartbreak. I couldn't eat. I was just terrible. But I think if I was to go overall favorite striker that I've in Premier League, in Bergkamp's up there, but I'd have to say Thierry Henry. I just watching him at his best was just, he was such a revolutionary player in the Premier League. He was amazing, absolutely amazing player.
I did a shoot with Thierry Henry and Jamie Carragher in October
Really?
for a film, and
Oh, nice.
Henry is he's still chiseled. He could still do a job out there.
Yeah.
I reckon he
Villa
could
need to sign
be
him up.
easily top 10
Yeah.
PL club player still.
Chiseled
Yeah,
like me and you.
maybe not like me anymore. And then if we were to pick a five-a-side team, who would be in it?
Right. Oh God. Wow. Okay. In goal, I'm putting Emi Martinez because he's the world's number one. There he is. Uh, is this an all-time Premier League five-side?
It
Is
could
it?
be
Is
any
it?
player, anywhere, anytime.
Oh, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, Lionel Messi's going in because I think he's the greatest player of all time. I watched him week in, week out at Barcelona, and I remember thinking, I'm watching history being made. Yeah, I could write poetry about him. I almost want to cry. I feel a bit like William Shakespeare talking. It's just amazing. A spiritual experience watching him. So Messi's in there. Brazilian Ronaldo up front. Again, I think,
Yeah.
you know, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi were the ones who set the numbers and set the bar in the more recent era. But I think Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo was that player before that in a defensive era.
Mm.
19 years of age, he gets 47 goals in 49 games for Barcelona in a defensive era in 1997. Extraordinary player. He's out for 4 years, comes back and wins the World Cup with 8 goals in the tournament. I think he's probably the best striker of all time. I think amazing, amazing player. Just had everything. Ronaldo, Messi, Emi Martinez. I'm sticking him in goal. Paul Maguire in defence for me.
Oh yes.
I I support Ireland, obviously. I support Aston Villa. He's God. There's a reason we call him God. And that performance he had against Italy for Ireland in 1994 on my birthday, my 8th birthday, 94. Um, so special, so special. So I'm sticking him in there. Obviously, a mercurial genius talent. Otherwise, Jalminha, Brazilian, Deportivo La Coruña, one of my all-time favourites, just because when I first started watching La Liga on Sky in 2000, he was that, Deportivo won the league that year, and
Yeah.
there was a fair few of them. There were a few like mercurial geniuses, Roberto Carlos was there,
I bet Luke,
Rivaldo,
yeah.
yeah, Clivert was there, all those, but man, Jalminha, I've never seen a player like him before or since. He just did things that you're like, that player does not exist now. And they don't.
No.
He was. I just encourage anyone who doesn't know about him to go watch Jalminha highlights on YouTube because he just did stuff that you think proper street ball genius, amazing, what a player. And then the other defender I'd go for, oh God, that is very tough. Who'd be my other defender? Uh, I'll stick in Martin Larsson, another Aston Villa player for AC, he played for AC Milan, Denmark international. Unfortunately, his career was blighted by terrible knee injuries,
Mm.
but him at his best, he was one of the best I think you'd ever see in the Premier League. I mean, look, Virgil van Dijk's the best defender ever in the Premier League. I think there's probably a case to be made that Virgil van Dijk might be the best defender of all time.
Mm.
That's probably a controversial argument. Yeah, a few people might push back against that. I don't know how he can be much better than him. He's amazing. But I think I'd just say I'm going to go Aston Villa player, stick Martin Larsson in because truly Martin Larsson, I know a lot of people won't know that much about him outside of Aston Villa fans and Milan fans and Denmark Danes.
Mm.
He was really
Yeah,
special.
I
And
remember him.
such a shame he got that injury when he was because it really debilitated his career. But what he showed, he was amazing. So yeah, I'm going Emi Martinez in goal, the world's number one. I love the man, proper shithouse. Forgive me for the swearing. And then Paul Maguire, Martin Larsson, Jalminha, Lionel Messi, and the man himself up front, Brazilian Ronaldo.
Brilliant, mate. Well, I think we'll call it there. But thanks for joining me today. Go and check out All Villa No Filler, everybody. It's a great pod. Uh, get it on Spotify, YouTube, Twitter. Where else can we get it, Frankie?
We're on TikTok now as well. We've finally moved into the year 2015 and joined TikTok. And Apple iTunes, all the places you download podcasts. And thanks so much for this, Joe. I wish you massive luck with this. You're a brilliant guy. You know your football. You love your football. You're a great broadcaster as well. And I really think this should lead to loads of opportunities for you. Best luck, dude.
Thanks, everybody. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.